We're diving into the world of home extensions, the dream projects that can turn into absolute nightmares. We're joined by Carl Walker, who's seen firsthand how things can spiral when expectations don't match reality.
I paid him the second instalment and then I never saw him again. I paid him 2/3 of the money and I had an extension that was basically to shoulder height. It was nowhere near finished.
From ballooning budgets to builders walking away. This episode is about spotting those warning signs early and steering your project back on track. If you're planning a home extension, this is an episode you definitely don't want to miss. Welcome everyone back to the podcast. Today we have Carl Walker, the co-founder of Urban Flux Podcast Studio in Wolverhampton. I visited the studio, great little studio, great venue. Check it out if you want to look at recording a podcast. And when we was looking around the studio, we briefly met and then we discussed. Carl's got quite a story to tell about a home extension go wrong. So as we dig into that, before we get into the story, Carl, can you take us back to that moment in time that you described to me briefly before? What year was it and how old was the family?
Oh, what year was it?
Roughly.
It was about, let me think. I knew you were going to ask me that and I just genuinely haven't got a clue. It was about 10 years ago. Let's call it 10, 12 years ago. Might be a bit longer than that. But
10 to 12 years ago, okay. So if you go back to that moment, what led you to want to, because it was a rear extension, I believe.
Yeah, I'll tell you from that, we'll go through the sort of full timeline. So My wife, we live on Russell's Hall in Dudley, local area. My wife has lived in that house since she was about 18 years old. It was a council house, so obviously you get a discount, don't you, for how many years you've lived in or they did have a right to buy scheme, I believe. So she got a decent discount. Obviously when I moved down here and started living with her, we decided to buy the house after being married for X amount of years. Bought the house, got a discount on it. So the money that we'd saved on the mortgage, we took out extra on the mortgage to renovate the property, really, to upgrade it from a bog sort of standard council house. And there was a bit that I forgot about. We actually started with a porch originally. So we wanted a porch building on the front and we wanted an extension wrapping around the side, open all the back of the house up with a side extension utility on, like everybody does these days, bifold doors, the sort of lot, really. So yeah, I had a young family. I was working as a postman actually at the time. I was between jobs. I'd shut one of my businesses down. I was looking for a job, looking for something to do. I'd took on this postie job, so I was sort of in between jobs at the time. And yeah, that was the start. We went for this renovation and we're going to do the house up, really. Okay,
so can you talk us through then what happened? So at what point did it start to go wrong? So you've got the mortgage in place, you've borrowed the money, you're ready to go. Where did you know it was falling apart?
Yeah, so we started off with an extension, not an extension, with a porch on the front, right? And we shopped around for builders, as you do, on these recommended websites that recommend tradies and stuff like that. Found this builder. Well, we looked for we got 3 quotes, as you people usually do. One was really expensive. One didn't come back to me until we'd started building the property. He actually came round with his quote. I was like, mate, we've already started at this point. And the other guy was the guy who was actually, his price was in the middle. I can't remember how much it was off the top of my head, but I thought, seems reasonable. He came round, spent a few hours with me, started getting a bit of trust from him. I checked his reviews on the Checker Trade or whatever website it was. I don't want to say it was that website, whichever one it was. And yeah, within a sort of 3-4 weeks, we'd agreed a price, and he was building the porch for us. And it went well. Like, to start with, no issues really.
So the porch went well. But you always planned on doing the extension as well. So
yeah, so he kind of knew this. So as we got to know him over sort of first week, he's building this porch and he's asking us what insulation we want in, and he actually threw in a bit of a sweetener. So we told him, like, we had brickwork on the side of the porch. We were going to render the front in and have it white up the front of it. And he was like, "Oh, why don't you terraline it?" I was like, "I don't know what terralining is." He showed me an example. He says, "I've got another job to do, terralining in the area." He said, "I'll terraline it for free as well. I'll throw that in." Okay. But obviously we'd spoken to him as we got to know him, going, "Oh yeah, we might be doing an extension later on down line, and we might be doing something in the living room." So he did the porch. The first red flag, though, should have been he didn't finish the roof. And because we got speaking to him about the extension, and he was like, "Oh, well, I'll finish the roof when I'm doing your extension roof. It's just better to get all materials together." So I was like, "Oh, okay then, yeah." And before we moved on to the extension, I'd eventually agreed that he was going to do the extension. But before we got onto that, we had some work done in the living room. So we had like a slightly dipped ceiling, where you have the lighting around the ceiling. Yeah. He did that pretty quickly. There was no issues with that. He built a metal frame around the living room. He plastered it, and that was fine. And yeah, by this point he'd already sort of tapped himself up to do the extension. Yeah. And it was the extension where it all went tits up. Okay. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast. Sorry, mate.
It's fine. So at what point then? So, like foundation, brickwork level. So what point was you at where you thought there's something wrong here?
There was no major point where I thought there's something wrong, but there was a number of like little issues as we went along. I thought, he's stalling here, or there's something not right here. So the first thing was we spoke to building regs and stuff like that. Yeah. This guy originally said, "Look, I don't really need plans. And I don't think building regs need full plans, do they, for extensions these days?"
No, if it's permitted development, you don't need plans.
Yeah, so it said that we didn't need plans, but then the week before he was about to start, he went, "Oh, where's your plans?" I was like, "You told me that I didn't need any plans." He said, "You knew what everything that was being built. We discussed it all. It's, you just better crack on with it." And he's like, "Oh, no, I need plans." So I ended up getting an architect in, got proper plans drawn up. And actually, once I had the plans done, I thought, you know what, that's actually better, because we all can see what we're working to. There's no drama. There can be nothing can be contested. So we got the plans drawn. But that was the first little red flag. But I didn't think too much of it. I just thought it was being a bit overcautious and all the rest of it. So the extension started. Materials arrived on site, no issues, and I don't know how most builders work, but he basically said, "I want payment in 3 instalments. So I want a third up front when we're getting all the materials in, a third once we've done the walls and it's come up out of the ground, and then he said like a third when it's sort of finished." When we've got all the electrics in and it's done at that point. So I paid him the first instalment of money. All materials were on site. I had a lad cracking on with foundations. Fine. Didn't really see any issues. The one thing I would question now, he had the lad digging the footings by hand, literally, and I thought, well, surely you could have just got a mini digger in and you'd have had it done in a day or two. But no, they had this lad, and if you know Russell's Hall, I don't know if you've done any work.
I do, Hall. Yeah. I was.
So it's an old mining area, isn't it? Yeah. So the ground is rock solid at parts, and this lad was pickaxing away for must have been a week, getting stuck into foundations. Eventually did it. We had a cage put in the. I think they call it a cage. It's like a load of metalwork went into the...
It's called a raft foundation.
Yeah, into the base, because that's what building regs had told him that he had to put in. Now, we weren't happy about that. I remember him having a bit of an argument with the building guy that came round. So this was a little bit... This was the first bit of like conflict. He was like going... well, I ain't charged you for that. I was like, well, we've had plans drawn up. You've told me the price, finished. I don't, at no point did you say to me that there might be X amount go over the cost because of this or that. And anyway, he did it. Didn't really say too much about it. But there was definitely like a little bit of conflict in there. So then he got onto the walls. Now, one of the things that started happening, he kept disappearing. So instead of it just being built constantly, day after day after day, it was like there'd be somebody on site for 2 days. It'd be like one lad that's a brickie, and then we'd have nothing for 4 days. So I'd end up going up phone going, Chris, what's going on? You still building it? Like, he's like, yeah, I've just got another job that's been booked in for ages, so we had to do that. I was like, oh, okay, I'll be there on Monday. So then, like, Monday had come round and he didn't turn up. So I was like, do I keep bothering him or am I just going to be pissing him off? Mm-hmm. How long do I leave it before I start questioning him? So I'd leave it a couple of days and then it'd be like, right, it's a week now to 10 days, nothing's happened. Like, obviously my missus is going, why are you asking? So I'd ring him up and then he'd turn up and then there'd be 2 people on site for X amount of days and like, he's cracking on with brickwork and then they disappear again. And this went on for like weeks, did this, where and I just thought, if you just concentrate on our build, you'd have it done and then you can move on. But he clearly booking jobs here, there and everywhere. And it'd be like some days, he'd tell me he was coming. I'd see him there in the morning with his brickie or whatever. They'd be working. I'd go off to work and I might finish work early and be back really early. And after like 3 hours, I come back. There's nobody on site. I was like, so he knows. He started to get to know my working pattern, and they were just disappearing off site. Clearly, they were going to other jobs and stuff like that. So I could see it like unraveling at this point. Yeah. And then it got to, he was doing the brickwork and it was like getting to about head height sort of thing like that. Oh, no, there was something else that flagged up. So so how we had the house, right, it was brickwork, like a similar sort of old sort of stone around the outside with like white render on the front and white render on the back. Now, we had some garage, the neighbour's garage was next to our house. And what he did was he started bricking the side of the house just past the point of where their garage was. And then he breeze blocked all the rest of it, which something we didn't discuss. But I just thought, well, if he knocks his garage down at any point, I've just got a breeze block house on shore. He didn't brick it. Yeah. So I wasn't right happy about that, but we let that slide. And then he started getting to the point where he was going to do the roof, and he started going, right, I need more money now. I was like, okay, but you kind of sort of said, the brickwork and stuff would be done first, and the brickwork still wasn't finished. And then he started going, oh yeah, but you've changed the plans, haven't you? I was like, well, what do you mean I've changed the plans? I haven't changed any plans. I said, we've got them here. We had them drawn up. He's like, no, you want a different type of ceiling on the inside. I was like, we haven't even discussed the ceiling. I don't know what you're on about, Chris. So he started making up issues that weren't there. Yeah. So this was a point where I did start getting a little bit worried. I was like, something ain't right here. Keeps disappearing for it time and time again. I could sense he was running out of money. He didn't have the money to do our extension at all. You just get a feeling, don't you? So reluctantly, he's like, right, and soon we're going to be going onto the roof. I said, okay. I was being a bit cautious by this part. I said, get the materials on site then, and then I'll give you the second third of the money, which I thought was reasonable. Yeah. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, I did that. So he got some materials, started turning up on site, the rafters and joists and whatnot. So I was like, okay, he's cracking on with it. So I paid him the second instalment, and then I never saw him again. Yeah. and that's what happened. So we ended up with some materials on site. I paid him 2/3 of the money, and I had an extension that was basically to shoulder height. It was nowhere near finished.
Yeah.
And he one day while I was at work, he came, cleared all the equipment out. He left me a few trellises. I don't know why, but they were the only things he left on site. I think he just wanted to leave something up so it looked like they were still working or something. And yeah, I never saw him again. I'd ring him up, stopped answering the phone, just completely, just fucking blanked me really.
Yeah, so it's quite a common picture, unfortunately.
I can imagine.
We hear similar stories quite often. You've picked up some of the red flags yourself. Obviously, you've pondered it quite a bit. Go back to the impact then. So your day-to-day work, obviously, I'm sure your wife, was your wife?
Yeah.
I'm sure she was quite upset at the time. And so how did that impact you, obviously, your relationship and your family and your well-being at that time?
Well, it nearly crushed us, to be honest. So not only were we financially out of pocket, we were left with a point where we couldn't afford to get a builder to build the rest of the extension because it was nowhere near finished. We didn't have enough money to I spoke to a couple of builders and I'm like, you're nowhere near even being able to get a roof on it. And it was worse than that. So where we'd built the extension down the side of the house, so we had a side door, so it took the side door off. So we had no side door on the house. The back of the house had been knocked out. It was basically on acros. It was holding the brickwork up on acros with a wooden board on it. So anybody could just burgle my house.
So the steel wasn't in the back of there?
The steel wasn't in. And
how long was that left for? Just on acro?
It wasn't left for long. It was was at the point where he was saying the steel's it's ready to go in. That's the next job.
Was the steel there at that moment?
The steel wasn't there.
Okay.
So this is where we are in a fucking state at this point.
Yeah.
The house isn't safe. I would say a building on acros on the back of the house, stretching 3 meters where bifold doors are going to go in. There was part of the wall, back wall was still in, but at the same time, someone could have just walked straight in the house. Yeah. So we were sleeping. I had my young daughter upstairs. We're sleeping with an open house, no way of securing the property. So I ended up the side door. At least you could see the side door. We ended up boarding that up. But the back, people could just walked in the house, picked up whatever they wanted, and walked straight back out. And we'd been none the wiser. We had no water. We had no hot water in the house because we ourselves had started while he was doing the extension. We'd started knocking all the kitchen out. So we had no kitchen. We had no hot water. We could have been burgled at any point. It was the most stressful situation I've ever been in, and it was horrible. So did it take a toll on my marriage and everything else? Yeah, 100%, mate. It was a dreadful situation.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I can only empathise. I mean, unfortunately, we do. We go to people and they're at breakdown point,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you came out of that with your marriage.
Yeah.
So going on from there then, so you had to step in and carry on and crack on and just kind of do it yourself, didn't you? So,
yeah, I had to be a have-a-go hero, and I'm not from no sort of building background. Yeah. My dad worked in IT, he never taught me how to use a drill, you know what I mean? But Kelly's dad, my wife's dad, he has worked in the steel industry and he's quite handy. So yeah, it was, obviously I kept ringing him for a couple of weeks, trying to get hold of him, trying to get him back. I'm thinking I'll say anything just to get him back, because at the end of the day, my house is unsecure. Eventually got to that point, was he ain't coming back. We've got no choice but to build the rest of this extension on our own, because we can't afford a builder. I need to get all my mates in, anybody I can who can do me a bit of a favour to finish it. So stage one was getting the steels in. We did that within the first week. Kelly's dad, he rang up some steel factories. I think we ended up getting it from Wolverhampton, actually. They were pretty good with us, actually. I can't remember the name of the company, but we basically said, this is what's happened. We spoke to building regs. They give us a bit of advice on companies to use to sort of get materials from and stuff like that. We got the steels in. I remember the day the steels turned up, 'cause they were massive. I just looked, I was like, how the fuck can we get that in the house? Like, it was just... so the steels arrived, and I was like, right, we need to build pad stones for the steels to go on. And these steels were so big, you couldn't buy these pad stones off the shelf. So I remember the first job that I did, I built these wooden boxes.
And cast the pad stones yourself?
Yeah, made these pad stones. We filled them with, made a concrete pad stones. That was my first job, doing a bit of cement work and getting these pad stones in place, ready.
Not an easy first job, that, if you've never used a drill.
no, I mean, literally, we was learning on the job. We was learning on the job, getting bits of advice from people.
Watching YouTube.
Stupid as it sounds, we were watching YouTube and learning how to do it. So we built the pad stones, got the pad stones in. The steels arrived, and I remember the day the steels went in. It was because I used to play rugby. I was like, lads, you got to come to my house. I've got a job for you.
Rugby tackler steel.
So yeah, we had these trellises, and it was ropey as hell. A lot of rugby lads all stood up on these trellises. We got these steels in. The acros came out. That was my first bit of relief. I was like, thank God the back of the house ain't going to fall down. You know, we've got the steels in. Surely that's the worst job we've got to do. And then from there we just carried on. So my next job was learning how to lay bricks, and thankfully the bit that was I thought nobody's going to see, I did that first. Get my string line out, and I just learned on the job, basically. I just bit by bit. We did it. We got the brickwork up, kept calling building regs around to just keep look at building control.
Who did the building regulations on it? Was it Dudley Council?
Dudley Council, yeah. And I've got to say, they were really good.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, when we first set up the payment from them, I think they were only supposed to visit like 3 or 4 times or something like that. They basically said, we told them what had happened. There was like, whatever you need from us, we'll come round, and if there's a bit of advice that we can give you, we'll help you out. So they were good. So I'd do a bit of brickwork, I'd get them round, like, right, is this going to pass? And they was like, yeah, actually, it's decent brickwork, you can carry on. And then we went on to the roof. Now, this is where Kelly's dad came in hand, really. He helped us build the roof. Along with, obviously, we had the architect's drawing, so that helped. At least we knew like to get the pitch and the angle and everything right. So that were it. My summer then was just, that were it. We were full on. I was at work every day. Like I say, I was a postman, so I was working like 6 o'clock in the morning and finishing like 2, 3 o'clock. So I was left with enough. It was in the summer, so I was left with enough light that I could work late at night. So I was working until like 10 o'clock every night on the property, and it got to a point where we completely run out of money. It was literally, I'd get my wage on a Friday, and that was buying materials, and then we was cracking on. And eventually we got it finished somehow. Like, to this day, it's probably still like one of my proudest achievements. Like the fact that we managed to get it done with no building experience really, and just help from some mates and bits of that. Yeah, but we eventually got the property finished, and building regs came round, and it was like, yeah, we're happy with it. Obviously, like electrics and stuff like that, eventually got like electricians in, but the relief was once I got that house secure, I got the front door on it, I got the bifolds on the back, and it was just like, right, it's secure now. If it takes me another 2 years to finish the inside of the house and get the kitchen in and the electrics wired up, and then so be it. But I was just happy once once it was secure and I couldn't get robbed anymore.
So what was that timeline like from start to finish? So when you first started this builder, to when you actually finished it with the kitchen back in place with electrics, what was that time period like? Was it like,
probably 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
You did pretty well then. Really, you did crack on with it to
yeah, I didn't stop, mate. I spent, like I said, and then the summer it happened, I think it was like at the beginning of the summer when he decided he was going to piss off.
Yeah.
I worked, well, I was literally working every day till 10, 12 o'clock at night. The only thing that was stopping us was the noise of drilling. I was like, well, we've got to stop now because neighbours they're going to be right happy that we're still like chiseling away and stuff like that. So yeah, well, you got no choice, have you? Sometimes your back's against the wall like that. You've just got to crack on with it, really.
That's it, yeah. So, at what point then did you think? I bet there's loads of times you thought this is a mistake. I wish I never started this, or was that every week? Or
yeah, it was. It was always the bits where, like, once I'd learned how to lay bricks, I was like, I'm all right with this. But it was every time we were about to start a new part of the challenge that we didn't know how to do. That was the bit that really like stressed me out. Like, I don't know how to fit a set of bifolding doors, or I don't know how to build a roof, or like every time we got to a new bit that was a challenge, that's when I really sort of felt the stress of it. But like once you get on with something, like once we got the top of the roof on, and we'd got the joist hangers in, and once we knew the angle of the roof and stuff like that, once you get to them points and you start doing it, it's like, okay, it's not too bad now. I can keep going. But it was every time we had a big decision to make. That was where you need a genuine builder who can say, no, that's exactly how it's got to be done. But like I say, building regs were great. They were really good. They helped a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now that's right though, isn't it? You can look back and you say, "Oh, I know how to do that now."
Yeah. But
it's you're not going to do that again, are you? How many roofs you put on since?
No, and I'm never going to lay another brick for the rest of my life as well. I said that. I remember the day we finished it. I was like, right, that is enough building for the rest of my life. I never want to touch it again. It was just horrible.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad for the positive feedback for building control, because they can get a negative. I think they are a really useful resource for the homeowners, and I'm glad you've used it like that, because a lot of people don't see. And I'll keep banging on about building controls there for the homeowner, not for the builder. Yeah. So I'm glad that kind of worked in your favour really with that. So because you don't get a lot of positive feedback for building control, so there's one, which is great.
Yeah, they were decent.
Yeah. So in terms of working with other trades, then, so how did you find that when you got? Did you manage to find some decent trades like electricians, and where did you find those from?
An electrician, I was lucky. I found I play rugby, so it just so happened that there was an electrician in the rugby team. So yeah, and actually he did me a favour, because he was at the point where he had to get a job signed off for his qualification. So I think he'd been studying at like university or whatever, and he was getting he wanted to be signed off, and he needed like a real job that had to be signed off. So he did that. He knew what had happened to us as well. He did that on the cheap for me. He said, as long as I can use it for my
portfolio,
to get signed off. So we did that. I was lucky there. I found a plasterer through the rugby team as well. It's a good job I played rugby, to be honest with you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found any of these trades. And I were at the point where even now I don't really trust tradesmen, to be honest with you. That is the honest truth of it.
Well, I've just wrote down a community, because obviously the community, your rugby community there, has helped you out massively, isn't it? The fact that you're young, fit, healthy, and also you've got the community there. Without that, obviously, you'd be... And it's just working like people you trust, working with people that you actually trust as well. So, yeah. So I've wrote down a couple of warning signs here. So...
Yeah, I'm looking for this bit. I'm looking for. I think I probably know most of them already now, but I'm interested to see what you say.
Well, I've circled in my notes. I've circled money issues, because as you're talking to me, I hear that quite a lot. You can tell the builders run out of money. They've either quoted it too low, and they've run out of money. So they come across a problem, and an element of it costs them too much.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the foundations.
Yeah.
So then they've then got a money issue. The foundations, you know, they are somewhat that they are an unknown quantity if you've not built in that area before. But obviously, he should have told you that and said, well, in that kind of area, it's always going to be a raft. It's always going to need steel reinforcement, but that comes with experience.
Yeah.
If it's an area where you've not built before, you should always say that, you know, the foundations are this, and you should explain that. That's the only element, really. One of the only elements that you can hit a bigger money issue, because it does cost more to put the steel reinforcement in there. So as soon as you said that, I thought money issues, and then when you started saying the stalling tactics like hand digging, again, there's no reason to hand. If you've got access for a mini digger, there's no real reason to hand dig. That's either a cost saving thing. You just put a cheap labourer there, thinking that that's going to save money. When
well, I know for a fact that the brickie was on. Because I got to know the brickie because he was the one who were at my house all the time, and the brickie was actually a decent lad, and he was like, even he was saying, look, he's paying me 150 quid a day or whatever, and I was thinking, well, I don't know how much mini diggers cost, but it's took him a week to dig the foundation, so surely it'd have been cheaper just getting a man in with a digger and just blasting it in a day, and it'd have been done. So, there was some strange decisions made along the way.
Yeah, so the other red flag I've picked up was the arguments. You know, when you're arguing with. So he's arguing with building control on what needs to happen.
Yeah.
You know, so he's obviously I think that's the point. That's kind of got him in trouble, really. And then he's onto a losing battle. So as soon as he's kind of got that second payment, that's when he's cut his losses and run. Yeah. Or slightly being up, and then he knows he can't finish the job. For what he's promised.
What I think he was doing as well. After I did a lot more digging into him, I think he was like basically getting money off of one job, spending it on somebody else's job. And it was just that snowball effect where he had all these jobs going at the same time. He clearly wasn't a very smart guy. He probably knew how to build, but he wasn't a smart enough guy to be able to manage his money.
Yeah.
And he was basically just taking money from one person that was going on another job, or because when I really dug into him, after all this happened, probably 6 months after we'd finished and all that, like I knew some of the suppliers that he was getting his stuff from, you know, your Travis Perkins and all that lot. And I was actually going to visit him, and there was like, oh, funny you mentioned, because this guy owes us 20 odd grand. I was like, oh, right. So he were even ripping off his suppliers as well. And he was just clearly just moving from one place to another. And he couldn't manage his money, or like you say, he was quoting too cheap, or.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of the things that, you know, the viewers can pay more attention to. You know, not finishing the porch roof it's a bit of a silly one, really.
Yeah.
You know, he should have.
It wasn't big. It wasn't big. It was, you know, there was only. I don't know how many tiles there's been on the roof. It wouldn't have been that many. You know what I mean? It was.
Do you know when he asked for the plans, did you give him the deposit at that point?
I can't remember.
Because again, that seems like a, you know, you
mentioned
the word stalling.
I think we have.
You'd give him the deposit.
Yeah, I think we. And that was the first. I remember being. Yeah, we give him, because I remember being pissed off at him because at no point he actually told me he didn't need plans. I specifically remember him saying, "I don't need plans. It's a straightforward extension. We do these all the time. I know what I'm doing here. We don't. You're just going to be spending more money if you go and get plans drawn up and all the rest of it." So yeah, then when he turned around and like the week he was meant to be starting, I think he'd probably not turned up. Or the first week he told me he was starting, an hour on the phone. He was like, "Oh yeah, you need. Well, where's your plans?" I was like, "Oh, so yeah."
So once he's got your deposit, it's another stalling technique, isn't it? So once he's got your deposit,
this is why. This is what I was saying. Like I knew he was just using the money elsewhere, so he'd get money off of us. Probably that's on another job. He'd probably start another job somewhere else later on the line that ends up getting spent on the materials for our job, and it was just a nightmare.
Because even you said getting the plans wasn't a bad thing, because then you knew what you was building basically, and you knew what you was getting. So I wouldn't, even on a permitted development job, I wouldn't want people to think it's not a good idea to get plans, because sometimes it is, because you know it's a level playing field then. So if you're going to get quotes, say, this is what I want you to build, you know, to this specification.
I tell you what I didn't do though, we never had any kind of contract.
Yeah.
at no point did I ever get and these were all the things I realised after it had all gone disastrously wrong. I was like, well, I spoke to a few people, well, can I take him to court? Probably. Will I win? Maybe. Will I ever get any money out of him? Probably not, because, like I say, we didn't have plans for stuff. It was all his word against mine. I remember going through like text messages and stuff like that just to see if I had any evidence that he was going to say he was going to do this or that, and we didn't really. He always just spoke to me on phone. So I definitely got a contract.
So yeah, definitely a contract for a build.
Do you know what it was though? Why we didn't have a contract? Because it gained my trust with the porch. Apart from the bit at just finishing it wasn't the roof that he didn't finish. He did the roof. It was the ridge plate on the top.
Okay.
He was like, oh, we'll just get that when we do the extension sort of thing. So it kind of built my trust with the porch. It came out, it looked really good. I mean, we designed it but the porch looked good. He'd gone onto the inside of the house and he'd done the inside of the house. That was fine.
You threw in the freebie again.
Yeah, so it gained my trust, and that's why I never went down this really hard line of going, right, I want a contract, I want this written down, I want a timeline of when you're doing everything. I didn't bother because at that point we had a decent relationship.
Yeah. So he's latched onto that, hasn't he? He's latched onto that trust,
big time.
And kind of just rolled with it. And a contract isn't a hard line, really. A contract is quite easy to write. It's, you're going to be doing this at this, and this is your stage payments. I mean, yeah. So for anyone out there, it shouldn't be an arduous thing for a builder to do.
What about payments? Did I make a mistake there, or what would what would you recommend?
So in 3 payments, that was never going to work as a setup, I think, because he's never going to leave a third to the end, because he wouldn't be able to sustain that. So let's say your extension's 60 grand, let's make the maths easy. So he's had 20 grand up front to build it, and then 20 grand to then start finishing. He's not going to leave 20 grand until he's completely done. No. He wouldn't be able to cash flow that. So I think that the payment structure was wrong, firstly, and that's in his favour. To get a third up front, a third halfway through, and then, like I said, he's going to ultimately try and push that payment early because it wouldn't work. So in terms of a setup, a small deposit is usually fine, say 10%.
Yeah.
And then stage payments on complete. So an extension, we typically have 4 to 5 payments, depending on how large the extension is.
Right.
So and it'd be contracted on usually element of the build complete. So anything that building control can sign off. So for instance, the foundations, they sign that off.
Yeah.
So you'd have a payment then. The superstructure, so the brickwork and the roof, is another sign off, so that you can ask for payment.
Yeah, see, he started asking for the money like once the brickwork started going in.
Yeah. So he's already had quite a big chunk of the money already, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So if he'd have, and as soon as he's got that over a third, that's
gone.
That's when he's done the run,
Literally within.
Because that third he's left with, it's going to cost him way more.
Yeah, it's going to cost him more, isn't it? Yeah.
So you never want to be behind, really, on the build. Apart from the deposits, most people pay deposits. You never really want to be behind on the payments. You always want to be, that's complete, you pay, that's complete, you pay. At the end, there needs to be a final balance to pay. Again, similar to the deposit, maybe 5-10% on the end. So when it's all signed off by building control and the client's happy, then they pay that last bit.
Right.
It's incentivising, really. So otherwise, you can get in the mentality, not that we do, but you can get in the mentality of that you're working for free in a sense.
Yeah. When you've had most of the money.
You had most of the money for it.
But then you've got most of the work still to do on the inside and all the rest of it,
Yeah. So an extension that size really should be 5 payments or 4.
Right.
Deposit, 3 stages, final.
Yeah.
But on completion of elements. There's a contract out there called JCQ contract, which is a standard contract for building, and it follows those kind of principles. And it's not hard to write. Okay, so when it was all finally finished, Carl, did you get a sense of relief from the experience? You said it's one of your biggest achievements.
Yeah.
So what was that feeling like when it was all done?
So obviously there was a lot of anger there, but the anger, it kind of went really quickly because, like I said to you before, all you wanted to do was make your house safe for your kids. So yeah, it was a sense of relief for a number of reasons, really. One, the house is secure. Two, we're financially going to be able to live a bit better, because one of the things I told you about is, like I said, we had no kitchen. I mean, we had no hot water, anything like it was like trying to live off takeaways. That was costing us a fortune. It makes you feel shit eating a takeaway is good in it as a bit of a treat on a weekend, on a Friday. Every day, like from the fish and chip shop, you want to bloody throw yourself under a bus. So it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And so it was just a relief that we got it done, really. And although I said to you, look, it didn't matter how long it was until we ended up getting the kitchen in and all the rest of it. It was, by that point, it was like, right, we can find some more money now, or can borrow some more money. And it was just like, let's just get a kitchen in and we'll start living like a normal person again. Because, yeah, it was just a horrible 18 months.
Yeah. So if you could go back then, one piece of advice you'd give yourself before starting the project, what would it be?
If a builder turns up with an orange van, I'd tell him to piss off down road straight away.
That's funny though. I mean, is that something you would look for? Would you look for like a sign-written van?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah. Genuinely would. And his actual appearance was a bit scruffy, really. Yeah. He turned up looking a bit. I've seen, like yourself, when you've come round or whatever, you turn up with your suit with your badged gear on, don't you? It's not, you're not. He turned up with literally plaster on his top. His van looked a scruffy mess. Probably didn't have an MOT on it. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't look the part, but he tricked me. He tricked me with that porch, and that's where I sort of gained his trust, really.
Okay, so I'm trying to gauge a top tip out of you. So a top tip that you'd give somebody if they're going to start a big extension, home renovation, something like that.
Well, as you've sort of said to me in the last 5 minutes, is don't be at a point where I'm giving more money away than what's been built. It needs to be the other way around. The building, I think probably a builder should have the money to be able to build your extension before they've even started. So it should be a case of they build, like you said, they build it, get the materials in, you pay them a price, and you go along that way, rather than giving them a load of money, and if something goes wrong and they disappear, you're in a situation where you're done for, really, like we were.
Yeah, I mean, this is a different story, but I do think the building authorities should come up with accreditation where you can prove that you can cash flow the project.
Yeah,
because if you're working day to day on a build like that and you hit a snag, that's going to cost you more like the foundations did.
Yeah,
that puts you at massive risk, and as a customer that you're not going to get that done, or you're going to have the delay tactics because the money's run out.
Yeah.
So I do agree that, but I don't agree that we should fund the builds or the builder should fund the builds.
Yeah,
but there should be an element of
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. And as long as everyone sticks to the agreements of that's fine, and that's what the contract should set out.
And that's my final thing I would say is actually have a contract don't build something purely on trust.
Okay, so tough experience. Thanks for coming in, Carl, and explaining that. So tell us now about Urban Flux Podcast Studio. So you've been running it for?
Well, it's been going. I find it difficult to say how long it's been going. We've been running podcasts for a couple of years, and we've sort of started to build up a number of clients. Probably been going 6 to 12 months properly. It's a podcast studio in Wolverhampton. I believe it is the first podcast studio, dedicated podcast studio anyway. People come to us, want to build authority in their market. That's what we do. We look after everything. They can have as much or as little as they want from us, so they can come in, just record and walk out with the footage, or they can have a full service from us where we literally deal with everything from the recording, the editing, distribution, lock, stock, the lot, really.
And you've done a bit for me, which has all been great, so I can give you a testimonial there. Your podcast name, the one you've been running for a few years, what's that, just so we can...
The Rugby League Outsiders.
The Rugby League Outsiders.
Yeah, we are, without doubt, the only rugby league podcast it's not from Yorkshire or Lancashire. As you know, the sport isn't really played in Wolverhampton, but yeah, we're two northerners exiled down here.
So where can people connect with you? So where's the best to get in touch? Is it your website? Is it social media?
Yeah, if people want to get in touch with me, urbanflux.co.uk is the website, or if you type in Urban Flux on social media, you'll pick us up that way as well and drop us a message.
Okay, Carl, thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing your story. We struggle to get people on to share their stories so openly. I think it's because it's been a number of years and actually tell the story without as much anger. So thanks a lot for that. And if anyone's watching and you want to share, subscribe and listen to more stories like Carl's, we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you very much.